Hello and welcome to the EisnerAmper Engaging Alternatives podcast series. I'm your host, Elana Margulies-Snyderman, and with me today is Kelly Ann Winget, founder and CEO of Alternative Wealth Partners, a Dallas-based private equity firm focused on blended portfolios of non-correlated investments. Today, Kelly will share with us her outlook for PE investing, including the greatest opportunities and challenges, her experience being a woman in the industry, and more. Before we dive into the conversation with Kelly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to EisnerAmper wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube at EisnerAmper. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So to kick off the conversation, tell us a little about your firm and how you got to where you are today.
So Alternative Wealth Partners was born out of the pandemic. We work on diversified private equity portfolios. We build diversified funds that invest strictly in alternative assets, everything from working interest in oil and gas to fintech startups. I'm 5 generations in oil and gas, so I was going to end up here whether I liked it or not. But I've been in the private alternative space for almost 15 years, and now I get to do it on behalf of the retail investor.
At EisnerAmper, we are creative problem solvers that take a 360-degree approach focusing on you. We're an award-winning firm with decades of experience. EisnerAmper, let's get you ready.
Great, Kelly. So given your focus on PE investing, I would love to hear your high-level overall outlook for the space.
So we're really focused on energy, infrastructure, manufacturing, kind of the industrial space. And that's because there's obviously now a big push for domestic onshoring for a lot of these things. We've been invested, like me personally, in this for over 10 years and with the firm 5. So it's nothing new to us, but we're really looking at opportunities that need and want next gen leadership. So we're looking at legacy companies that are a little too small for traditional private equity and putting in next gen leadership, technology, resources, et cetera. Really looking to bring the kind of old industry space into the 21st century in a sustainable way, because what worked for 100 years prior isn't going to work for the next 100 years. And so looking to bring that company, Small Business of America, into that next phase.
And Kelly, more specifically, what are some of the greatest opportunities you see in your space and why?
I think the most exciting things that we're looking at is going to be in the defense space. So securing our national supply chains and these spaces that are really relevant to our national security. And this goes beyond cybersecurity, where we do have a little bit of exposure, but really in the hardware space. So looking at grid infrastructure, renewable, sustainable energy. I mean, I'm 5 generations in oil and gas, but that doesn't mean I believe that's the future. Um, and into the manufacturing space of like parts and widgets and things that protect our country and the people that are fighting for our country overseas, and thinking about it in a tax efficient way. So how can we build this and support this with U.S. capital to protect U.S. interests?
Kelly, on the other hand, what are some of the greatest challenges you face in your space and why?
I think for me, I'm 35 years old, so there's a little bit of like young whippersnapper thing going on. But, I think that this is a great opportunity for us to go into these legacy companies where you have an older generation. This leadership is in their 70s, 80s, 90s in some cases with no succession plan. Um, their next gen isn't interested in the business, and they get to kind of like look at us as that opportunity for their legacy to be carried forward with somebody that believes in it. And so I think that the challenge is really just getting people to accept that there needs to be a passing of the torch, and that, we are of age to do that. I spend a lot of time reminding people of like, where were you at 35? And they're like, oh yeah, that was like kind of those 35 to 45 was the peak years of my career. And yeah, that is the time to pass a torch. And I think like that's where the challenge is, but it's been an exciting thing to be a part of and overcome.
Kelly, that segues into the following question I have for you about being a woman in this business. And obviously, you're an inspiration. I'd love to hear what you're doing to inspire others to follow in your footsteps.
I think representation matters. So, having a public presence and talking openly about the things that we're working on, and also like being in a space that's pretty male dominated, private equity, oil and gas. Like these are spaces I've been in for a long time, so I'm not uncomfortable with being the only woman in the room. But it is nice that in the last few years that's changed, and now there's, like, another woman in the room, or at least in the building, and, so I think that just as more people come out and, are present and being louder about participating in these spaces that, we find each other, it's not so lonely anymore, which is pretty nice.
Kelly, we've covered a lot of ground today and wanted to see if there are any final thoughts you would like to share with us.
I think that people should start thinking about these markets in a much larger capacity, that it's not so small. Like, you really need to, like, broaden your strategy or thinking about these different types of asset classes because you might have an opinion about oil and gas, you might have an opinion about defense, you might have an opinion about all these things, but there's 8 billion people on this planet, and the United States is very advanced, but we have an opportunity to bring, this innovation global. And so if you think about the opportunities out there that you can invest in, really think about the scalability of that because, again, there's 8 billion people on the planet, and the United States is really far ahead of the rest of those people. And so, can there be an opportunity to bring what we're building here other places? And that's the opportunity that we see.
Kelly, I wanted to thank you so much for sharing your perspective with our listeners.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to the EisnerAmper podcast series. Visit EisnerAmper.com for more information on this and a host of other topics. And join us for our next EisnerAmper podcast when we get down to business.